Hi, welcome to Ardyth's special video hop. Emily Midgett here from Sixth Street Sundries, here today to help Ardyth Percy Robb celebrate a huge milestone in the life of a blogger, 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. For today's celebration, I've created a video featuring one of my newest loves, Tombow water-based markers. In today's video, I will show you how you can achieve incredible depth and dimension by adding layer upon layer of color to your project. For today's project, I've used Hero Art's new Peonies stamp set. I've die cut and heat embossed the image in gold onto some Arches cold press watercolor paper. You may have heard me say before that the key to watercoloring and coloring in general is layers. The more layers of color you add, the more depth you will create in your project. Today I've used 4 different shades of Tombow marker to create some serious vibrance and depth on this giant peony bloom. I started with a muted peach color. With Tombow markers, I found that like zig markers, the color can sink into the watercolor paper if you're pokey getting your damp paintbrush to it. Because of this, I work petal by petal, laying the color down directly onto the paper, then using the tip of my wet paintbrush to gradually pull the color out and create a smooth fade. You'll see that I'm not as persnickety about blending all of the color out as I normally am, because we're going to cover that with another layer of color in just a minute. With the first layer of peach finished, I will now add some bright orange. I want a vibrant, almost neon pink peony with various undertones of orange, pink, and purple. And the best way to achieve that dramatic color is to add several layers of bright color. With each layer, I decrease the amount of initial color laid down. For the first peach layer, I laid down quite a bit of the color, then blended it out with my wet paintbrush. For the second layer, I want merely a wash of color that lays over the top of the peach so that you still see the undertones of both colors. For the third layer, I add a beautiful watermelon pink. This lays over the top of the orange and peach mixture and creates a lovely shade of coral. I repeat the process, adding just a small amount of color towards the center of the flower, then pulling the color out with my wet paintbrush. I find that having decent watercolor paper is important, especially when adding several layers of color. You want to be able to move the layers of color around without worrying about pilling. I've discovered that the Tombow markers work quite well by laying down your color, then adding dabs of water on them with your wet paintbrush and allowing the water to activate the color for a few seconds. I then use the tip of a fairly damp, clean paintbrush to pull the color out and blend highlights and shadows. For the final layer, I wanted to add a vibrant fuchsia purple, which in addition to adding the pretty shade of purple to our watermelon peach mixture, also creates lovely shadows and depth. I add just tiny little dabs of purple right up against the heat embossed edges of the petals, then pull the color out. You'll notice that I frequently dab my brush on my stamp chamois to either remove excess water or to clean off the color on the tip. If I've added too much pigment directly to the image from the marker, I can always pull some of the color off with my wet paintbrush, clean the color off of my paintbrush with my chamois, and then re-wet my paintbrush. Contrast is one of the most important elements of coloring. Objects in real life have great color variation and contrast between light and dark. Adding that touch of violet to the nooks and crannies of the flower really helps to emphasize the contrast between the bright and shadowed portions of the flower. To finish the project off, I add my completed peony flower, bud, greenery, and sentiment die cut from Concord & Ninth to a stenciled card front. I start with an ink-blended background that I'd finished before the video started. I like to blend several at a time so that I have a quick card front if I'm in a rush. This particular background was created by blending picked raspberry and abandoned coral distress oxide inks. I use white pigment ink from Hero Arts and the Crossing Wave stencil to blend a subtle pattern on the ombre background. I add my die cuts to the card front using dimensional and liquid adhesive, then add a few gems from Pretty Pink Posh to the card front. And here's the finished product. I hope you've enjoyed this video hop to celebrate Ardyth's special milestone. You can read all about the details of the video hop, get product links for my project, and find your next stop on the hop in the description below. A special congratulations to Ardyth on her achievement. Thanks so much for watching, and have a marvelous day.